as women, we can get to this place of just being vulnerable and saying what's really there for us instead of hiding behind some of these hard shells and like fighting and going against. I want to look at, as a family, as a female, as a mom, what can I be for instead of being against something? Because I think it's a lot easier to get people to come with you when you're for something.
I have a deeper question that I wanted your take on. As you were talking, I'm like, this is, to Andrew's point, is beautiful because you created a framework, something that's simple to follow or to model. So I appreciate that. Where my curiosity went is you hear women say that it's like a male dominant industry, male dominant world. You hear sometimes women say that, especially, and again, we're kind of going down a little rabbit hole here. I would say I identify as a feminist, to the real root of what the word means. But then there's a whole movement that kind of doesn't really align too much with the actual definition of what the word means. So I'm very interested in your take. I'm interested at what the conversation and table topics are with your four daughters underneath this umbrella, and what are the conversations around this paradigm that is like around in our society right now. So I'd love to hear from you on this. I hope you're cool with just speaking open and
Absolutely.
honest and speaking everything that you can around this topic, because
Yeah.
I'm probably going to have a few follow-ups and more curiosities around it. It's a great question.
Yeah. Just to give some context around the ages of the girls, they're 19, 17, 13, 10. And I tell you, having adult children is so fun. Like, I've just had the best time. Our oldest daughter has moved out. She's living in Tulsa and working. And our 17-year-old graduates from high school this year. And they are both incredibly independent and yet value our family and our relationships so highly. I know when my oldest is off of work, because she, like, my phone rings at like 5:04 when she's driving home. Um, and I love that we can have these sorts of conversations about real stuff going on in the world, and stuff going on in the news, and stuff that they're hearing generationally from their friends of like, hey, I don't know what to do with this, right? Like, what do you do with the feminist movement? What do you do with, all the gender stuff that's coming out? Like, how do you navigate that? And I think one is, in your household, have you made it a place where these conversations are okay and they're not going to feel judged for even having the conversation? Because there have been times where they have come home from school and they've said something that might be a little controversial, or like, well, crap, I didn't have to deal with that when I was a kid, right? And internally, there's this war going on of like wanting to shut it down, or like, oh, that's not the way it should be, or that's not the way it is, and to get out of judgment and lean back into the curiosity, right? Go back into how they're thinking. We have set up a framework in our house of, you know what, there's a whole lot of noise going on in the world. Instead of like listening to the noise and being responsive to the noise, how do we want to be and how do we want to show up in the world? There's a common sentiment that's been around for a little bit of like, for women, like finding their seat at the table, like, making room, and like, I want a seat at the table. And there was something about it that I was like, well, yes, but I kind of resisted it a little bit and I couldn't quite figure it out. Until I finished the book. It was one of the last things that I wrote in the book. And at the end, I wrote a letter to my daughters. And it was just bullet points of things that I'm like, if something happened and I was gone tomorrow, what are the things that I would want to leave them with? And one of the things that I left them with was, be a table builder. Don't worry about finding a seat at a table. Just go build more tables, because there are people looking for friends. There are people looking for a seat. Go build some more tables and invite people to come sit with you. And when that table's full, go build another one and go teach other women how to go build tables. Because I think for too long, women have been against each other. Like, we haven't needed anybody else to make our lives miserable because we've done a really good job on our own. And so as a family of primarily females, it's like, how do we want to be in the world? How do we want to show up differently? And the way that we've modeled, one of the ways that we've modeled this in our home is, we have people over our house all the time. I host these girls' night out events, and I just invite women to come. And they're like, what is it? I'm like, well, just come once. I can't really explain it, but I promise you'll leave with a new friend. And I start with the C.S. Lewis quote, which is also in the book. That's one of my favorites. Um, Friendship begins at the moment when someone says, you too, I thought I was the only one. So when, as women, we can get to this place of just being vulnerable and saying what's really there for us instead of hiding behind some of these hard shells and like fighting and going against, I want to look at as a family, as a female, as a mom, what can I be for instead of being against something? Because I think it's a lot easier to get people to come with you when you're for something that you can believe in.
That was a great answer. And I appreciate you asking, or I appreciate you answering and allowing me to ask. And I do have a couple follow-ups. I'll kick it to Biggs, but I just wanted to say that the reason why I asked that question is because just the context. I had a young lady, I don't know, probably going back several years at this point, and she outed herself, and she was saying, you know, you're a privileged white male in this society, and you're the problem with you know, me not being able to have equal rights, and you know, just like a kind of like a bashing session on me. And I'm like, what the hell? Where's it? Like, you were like, I was a great mentor for you. Like you know, like a couple years ago, you were having like suicidal thoughts and called me as the first person before you even called your parents. And I was like there, and now I'm the problem. Like, what happened? Where did this tide turn? And I was almost speechless in the moment, where it's like, I didn't even know what to say or how to process being accused of something that
Mm.
I felt innocent to. And I think that there's some men, I can't speak on behalf of all men, and I think there's some people in general
Mm-hmm.
who feel like they're being pointed
Yeah.
fingers to
Mm-hmm.
and fingers at
Mm-hmm.
for something that we didn't even know that existed, or that we're almost like innocent to. And raising some sort of awareness around this, that in a healthy dialogue with someone who's doing so well and has such a beautiful movement and awesome insights, to have a real conversation around this. I felt like it was too much of an important topic for me not to go deep on, and I didn't know we were going to go there until we started talking. But I really appreciate you expressing what you did, and I'd like to see if there's more,
Oh,
if you have anything else to say to that.
oh my gosh, we could go 3 days on this. I mean, because for those of you that aren't
Please,
watching,
can go on.
for those that aren't seeing visually, I'm Asian Indian. I'm first generation American. My parents came here from India. I'm married to the whitest white guy from Montana, and our four girls are just this beautiful shade of mocha that you can imagine. Everybody looks at them and is like, you know, they'll travel places and be like, what nationality are you? And you know, because nobody can ever guess. Um, and you should interview them on a podcast sometime, is what it's like to be that generation, right? Of still having to check a box of which race are you, and you can pick one still in 2022, right? 2023. It's like, really? We're still picking one. And yeah, so my husband's had times where he's been accused of being racist at work, and it's like, have you seen a family picture? Right? One of my goals as a mom is to raise empowered women, and to be an empowered individual, that there's nothing on anybody else in that. That is 100% on me to be an empowered person. You can't take away my power. I can only give it away. I think there's something right now in culture society where it's cool to be a victim. It's cool to cancel people. It's cool to, you know, make people pay for something forever without any sort of grace. Um, and that just feels so, oh my gosh, the world just needs a little bit more kindness, right? Like, which one of us is without sin? Throw the first stone. And yet we're watching people throw stones all day. So I don't want white people to feel bad for being white. I don't want black people to feel bad for being black. I want them all. I want every person, male, female, whatever color, to be empowered as who you are as a person. And I'm not going to make excuses for that. I'm not going to blame anybody for that. As long as I blame somebody, I'm giving away my power. And I refuse to do that. And I refuse to have kids that think that somebody else is responsible for their happiness or for things that they have. When you look at, the words, we were promised the pursuit of happiness, not happiness all the time. But how lucky are we to live in a place where we can pursue happiness anytime, any day that we choose?
This is so good, and I loved your frame around this, Alyce, and thanks for, like Mike said, just being willing to take on any topic. And I think, especially to the parenting point, bringing this back to like raising children and being a mother, being a father, it's like, we are being forced to have conversations that, again, certainly I never felt like I was exposed to many of these conversations as a kid.